Howdy, what is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. First things first, if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell I have a new haircut, but also no facial hair. So that's first and foremost, so if you're shocked, it's still me. Every time I upload a video to YouTube, they always ask me if this video is made for kids. I might have to put like, no, but I am a kid for like this episode. I have no hair. I look like I'm 16 in high school again. So just bear with me. It'll grow back, so don't worry about it. The next thing is, I don't know if you can already hear, but my voice is a little raspy. This past weekend I watched the Maryland basketball game and I got a little rowdy. So if my voice cracks or if it goes down or if anything like that happens, that's why right there. So I'm just now getting that back so I can do this video. Last thing, obviously, new shirt. I also really like this fucking color too. So like I'm pretty stoked about this, but those are my three things that I'm gonna get started with. Today's video is, it's going to talk about why fad diets work, and I promise I'm going to try my best not to make fun of them. I'm not going to put them down. I'm going to try my best. I'm sure it'll happen because as most people know, I'm not the biggest fan of these kind of diets, but I'm going to do my best to stay just kind of like, I don't want to say unbiased because I don't like them, but I'm going to do my best to stay unbiased in the sense that like I'm just going to tell you and explain to you why it works, because I wrote right here, if you can't see, it's not magic, and it's really not magic. There's nothing in intermittent fasting, there's nothing in keto, there's nothing in plant-based diets, and there's more, but I just picked these three because they've been the most popular as far as like questions being asked to me. So there's nothing magical or special about these diets. It all comes down to simple things that are going to have to happen whether you do fasting, whether you do keto, whether you do a plant-based diet, whether you do calorie counting, whatever it is, these simple things have to happen. So I'm going to break these down and just kind of go over why they work. And again, it's not going to be anything magical, especially like keto. It's not going to be anything magical. It's just going to be very, very simple. And I'm going to hopefully help you understand and educate you on why these things work and how you can then implement this same principle into your kind of fat loss journey, right? So starting with fasting. So if you don't know what intermittent fasting is, and there's a bunch of different types out there now. I hear like, I don't know, like 16-8 or like 20-4. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. It's basically just like not eating for a certain period of time, right? So if you are trying to lose fat, if that's what your goal is, if that's why you're doing intermittent fasting. Now there's some people who do it for like a bunch of different reasons, like religion, or they do it for a bunch of different reasons. If you do it for that, that's like totally something different, and we're not really gonna touch on that today because I'm not an expert in that. But if you're talking about fasting for fat loss, I want to make this clear to help you guys more. There's nothing magical about it. There's nothing special about it. What intermittent fasting does is it limits the time you can eat your food, right? So if it's a 16-8, so where you don't eat for 16 hours and you do eat for 8 hours. If you're only eating for a certain period of time from 2 in the afternoon to 6 at night or whatever it is, well then, during that period of time, you're probably gonna eat a little bit less calories than you normally would, because you don't have breakfast, you don't have the snacks, you don't have the muffins, you don't have the extra food you normally would, because you're kind of restricting your eating time to a certain period of time, right? So normally, if you restrict the time you can eat, well then you condense what you eat. So you have to take some things out. If you take some things out, because you can't eat at 11 like you normally do when you normally go to work and have muffins, if you don't do that anymore, you're cutting those muffins out. If you cut those muffins out, that's just less calories you're then eating. So if you're eating less calories, you're in a calorie deficit. So if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. And that's what I want to touch on is, it's nothing about the fasting. It's nothing about like the actual quote unquote diet itself. All that it comes back to is, okay, you're fasting, so you're restricting the time you can eat. So because you're restricting the time you can eat, you can only eat from 2 to 6 in the afternoon, you probably won't eat as many calories. You probably won't have, obviously, breakfast or snacks, or you won't have snacks at night after you're done dinner. So if you're doing that, well then you're gonna eat less calories because you're eating less food. All right, you can only fit it in a certain window of time. So normally you're gonna eat less calories, which leads to you being in a calorie deficit, which leads to you losing fat. So that's the thing on fasting. Nothing crazy, nothing special. I will say this though, and I'm not even being like biased here, but I will say this, like it tends to sometimes, not for everybody, because there are plenty of people who do fasting and see results. I'm not saying that. But just think about if you're restricting the time you can eat, well then are you totally either A, binging during that period? If you can only eat from 4 to 8 at night, are you just totally binging when you do go to eat? Because you're like, oh shit, well I can't eat before and I can't eat after, so I'm just gonna eat everything I possibly can during this 4-hour window or this 6-hour window or whatever it is. Are you doing that? Because if you are, it doesn't matter if you do intermittent fasting, you're still gonna gain weight because you're still not in a calorie deficit. So you're still in a calorie surplus because you're eating every single thing you possibly can find because you know you're not gonna be able to eat afterwards or beforehand. So you're still eating everything in sight, so you're still gonna gain weight. It doesn't matter if you are doing intermittent fasting. If you're not using it to be in a calorie deficit, you're not going to see results. Or the other side of that is kind of the same thing, but B, are you doing it maybe 4 days out of the week and then feeling so restricted that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're like, okay, well, I won't intermittent fast on these days. I'm perfect Monday through Thursday doing my intermittent fasting, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I have too many kids things, I have too many sporting events, I have too many going out to eat. I'm not gonna do it, I'll just eat to the best of my ability. If you're doing that Monday through Thursday and you're doing the eating out and eating whatever you want Friday, Saturday, Sunday, well, when Sunday rolls around, if you're not in a calorie deficit, you are not going to lose weight. I don't care if you are doing intermittent fasting. If you're not in a calorie deficit at the end of the week, you're not going to lose fat. So that is why fasting works. It just restricts your time to eat, which lends some people to be in a calorie deficit. Not all people, because I've seen it really backfire for some people. I mean, I've seen people binge on 4,000 calories in a 4-hour span because they know they're not gonna eat the rest of the day. So if you eat 4,000 calories in 4 hours, or if you eat 4,000 calories in 12 hours, you still eat 4,000 calories, so you're still gonna gain weight. So just be aware of that if you are thinking about trying it, because just because you do it doesn't mean you're gonna lose fat. And I want people to understand that. So that's first and foremost. The next one, and this is the one of the century, the next thing I'm gonna talk about is keto. And I'm just gonna say why it works, right? So what is keto? You basically cut out all carbs. And if you wanna do that, cool. That sounds absolutely awful, but if you're gonna do that, that's amazing. So the thing with keto is, why does it work? And then why, not only does it work, but why does it work so quickly? So let's go over it. Again, if you're doing keto, you're cutting out an entire food group. You're cutting out an entire food group, protein, carbs, and fats. You're cutting carbs out. So if you're cutting out an entire food group, think about how many calories that cuts, not carbs. It has nothing to do with carbs. You don't eat carbs and gain weight. The only way you gain weight or lose weight is if you're in a calorie surplus or a calorie deficit. You do not gain weight from carbs. But if you cut out all those carbs, think about how many calories, total calories, you will be cutting out. Think about all the snacks you eat, all the toast in the morning, all the pasta, all the rice, all the potatoes, all the Nutri-Grain bars. Think about all those snacks, every single thing you eat. Think about how many calories that has. It is not the carbs that is making you lose weight. That's not what is making you lose weight. It is the calories that you are cutting in those carbs, right? All those total calories that you are cutting out because you're doing keto, that's what's going to put you in, what? A calorie deficit. Cutting those carbs out cuts a lot of calories, which puts you in a calorie deficit. And that is why you will lose fat on keto. More on that in a second, but why does it work so quickly? Okay, well, let's talk about it again. If you cut out carbs, carbs tend to store, they don't tend to, they do. Carbs store water in your body, right? And that's for a million different reasons. That's for your muscles, that's for your cells, that's for a million different reasons. So when you eat carbs, you store some more water. If you completely cut those carbs out, slash carbs by 90%, you're only eating 20 grams a day as opposed to eating 180, well, you're gonna lose a shit ton of water weight. You didn't lose any fat. You did not lose 10 pounds of fat, 20 pounds of fat in 1 month or 2 months. It's scientifically impossible. You did not lose that much fat in 1 or 2 months. What happens is you lose water weight on a scale. You lose weight on a scale. Now, I know that's cool for some of you and that's what you're chasing. And honestly, if you are, you're probably not gonna watch this video, but if you're losing water weight on a scale, that doesn't mean you're losing fat. And that's why keto works so quickly, because those carbohydrates, when you eat carbs, it soaks up the water, especially in your muscle cells, right? So if you cut out all those carbs, well, you're cutting out all that water weight. And that's honestly not the best thing, especially if you do work out. Like if you work out consistently, You want to have some water weight inside your muscles so they can perform, but that's neither here nor there. I said I was going to be unbiased, but that's why that works so quickly. Again, though, if you're only doing it for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is, yeah, you might lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks, but what's going to happen after those 12 weeks? What happens when you reintroduce carbs back into your diet? I hear this all the time. People tell me they're going to do keto to drop 15, 20 pounds and then maintain. You don't just do keto, lose 20 pounds, and maintain that 20 pounds. That's like a sprinter running as hard as they possibly can to the finish line. After they cross that finish line, they're like, oh, okay, cool, I'm done. Or they're not just like, okay, let me just keep going. No, they're fucking exhausted, their hands are on their hip, like they're tired, they're exhausted. They don't keep that pace up. And that's exactly the same thing with keto. It's like, if you lose 20 pounds and you think you're just gonna maintain, it's not gonna happen, because when you reintroduce carbs back into your diet, not only do you gain all that water weight back, so you really only lost like 3 or 4 pounds of fat, which is absolutely amazing because losing fat takes time, but you've really only lost 3 or 4 pounds of fat as opposed to 20, which you think you've done. So when you gain all that water weight back, you're like, oh my God, fuck this, I ruined all my progress, this didn't work, I fucked up. Okay, well screw this, I'm just gonna go back to eating whatever I want. And that sets you on a terrible path because it creates an unhealthy relationship with food. Because if you think that when you add carbs back in your diet, you gain fat back, you don't gain fat back. That's scientifically impossible. You are gaining water weight back because you're adding carbs back into your diet because you're storing more water in your body, which is not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. Again, especially if you work out. So what happens after keto is people go back on carbohydrates. They think they're going to keep the progress, keep the fat loss off, when really they only lost 3 or 4 pounds anyway. But they think they're going to keep their progress when in reality, they're going to gain most of it back. And they think it didn't work, and they think they fucked up, and they think they did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, and that's just how science works. So I wanted to say that because that one is very, I've seen very tough for people because it's a bad mental place to put yourself in, because if you're chasing that 20-pound fat loss as fast as you possibly can, you'll lose it, but that's not the hard part. Everybody I coach, every single person I coach online for their nutrition, I can get you to lose fat. I can get you to lose weight. That's not the hard part. That's not the hard part at all. That's actually pretty simple. The hard part is, how do you keep it off? And if you're going to do keto to drop 20 pounds, but then gain it all back, what are you really doing? What is the cycle you're really creating? So I don't want to say keto's bad, but that's why it works, right? Why does it work? Because you cut carbs, you cut all the water, you're in a calorie deficit from cutting the carbs, not just from the carbs. Cutting the carbs is putting you in a calorie deficit, and that's why you're going to lose fat. Nothing special, no ketosis, no this, no that. You're in a calorie deficit. That's all that matters. You can do that a million different ways, but that's how keto does that. And again, why is it so quick? Because you're cutting the carbs that store water. And if you store less water, you'll weigh less on the scale. But when you introduce carbs back into your diet, you'll probably gain more. Not a big deal, right? So those two are what I wanted to really cover first and foremost. The next one is plant-based diets. And this is just because I've got a lot of questions. I get a lot of people asking me. It's very cool nowadays. First things first, if you do it for ethical reasons, if this is how you've always eaten, or you choose to eat like this because of ethical reasons, totally cool. I'm not talking about that whatsoever. Vegan, all that stuff. If you choose to do that for ethical reasons, totally cool. If you're doing it because you think you're going to lose weight faster, that's what I'm talking about here. So plant-based diet. The reason this works, quote unquote, is because you replace a lot of your processed foods, processed snacks, processed sugars with vegetables. So let's talk about it. If you add in more vegetables and cut out more processed foods, what do you think is going to happen? Those vegetables are less calories. Those processed foods are more calories. So you're going to cut back on the more calories and cut up the foods that are less in calories, but you'll have more of it, right? So you replace the stuff that's higher in calories with stuff that's lower in calories. So therefore, you're in a calorie deficit. So therefore, that's why you will lose weight. Not because you're doing a plant-based diet, but because you're cutting out processed foods, processed sugars. You're cutting out a lot of these things that most Americans, most human beings eat. You're cutting it out and replacing it with vegetables, with low-calorie vegetables and fruits and et cetera, et cetera. That right there is why you would lose fat from a plant-based diet. Not because you're nothing crazy. No, not just because you're doing a plant-based diet, you're going to lose fat. No. you're just in a calorie deficit again. And it's not even the meat, because again, like there's chicken that's 100 calories. There's a lot of things that aren't that many calories, but it's just because you're replacing those foods you were eating with now vegetables and fruits. So eating more vegetables and fruits is going to lead you to probably lose weight. Shocker, right? So that right there. And again, as far as like performance-based, some people like to argue performance-based. There's not a lot of research, and when I say performance, I mean like, you know, going into the gym and working out, but like there's not a lot of research that backs that. Actually, like the more research that comes out, if you actually look at the real research, not like marketing, advertising research, animal protein is always by far the most bioavailable and the most, I want to say like, I guess bioavailable. So your body can actually digest it, break it down, and use it for muscle repair, use it for muscle growth, use it for cell reproduction, use it for the right purposes, as opposed to, you know, getting rice from brown rice, or I'm sorry, getting protein from brown rice. Nothing wrong with that, but research shows if you're looking for muscle growth and muscle repair, animal protein tends to be the best. But again, if you're doing that for ethical reasons, nothing wrong with that whatsoever, and you do you, girl. But like, if you're doing it for fat loss, there's nothing special behind it, no magic behind it. It's just that you're putting yourself in a calorie deficit. So that's, as far as plant-based diets goes, that's how that works. And the last one, I've kind of like touched on this, and I'm sure if you watch any of my videos, you're gonna know what I'm gonna talk about. But every single thing I did here, I said, this is why fasting works. This is why keto works. This is why plant-based diets work. And I use that quotation marks worked because, yeah, it may work for 4 weeks that you do keto. Yeah, it may work for 8 weeks you do fasting. But what happens after those 8 weeks? What happens after those 12 weeks you do keto? What happens after you get sick and tired of only eating vegetables on a plant-based diet? Like, what happens after? And the thing I wrote here is sustainability overall, because you need to have something you can stick to. You need to have something you can adhere to. You need to have something where you can have your favorite foods. You need to have something where you can still enjoy food or drinks or times out or whatever the case may be. Because if you don't, you're not going to sustain it. And if you're not going to sustain it, what are we really doing here? Like, what is the purpose? You're not changing anything. You're just following a plan for 12 weeks and then going back to exactly what you were doing. So your weight's going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, and do this yo-yo cycle of just going up and down. And you're not learning anything. You're not getting any education. You're not changing your habits. You're not building a foundation. You're just following keto because you think you're going to lose the most fat from it. You might lose the most weight from it in 2 months when you lose 20 pounds. But after you go back to eating the way you're eating, you're going to do the same. You're going to be at the same weight, if not higher, that you've been at, because now you have a more unhealthy relationship with food. So if you're doing that, why not just take those 4 weeks, those 8 weeks, those 12 weeks, and put it towards something you can sustain. Put it towards learning. Put it towards education. Put it towards coaching with somebody who's going to help you make those lifestyle changes. Like, stop doing this back and forth, back and forth. Find a way you can try to find a plan. And at the end of the day, it won't be a plan, it will be a lifestyle. But try to find a plan you can stick to and adhere, and have somebody push you through and help you through and guide you through and educate you through. That's going to help you make a life change. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, any of this works. Every single diet will work as long as you're in a calorie deficit. If you're in a calorie deficit, I don't know, any single diet can work. But what happens after the diet is over? You shouldn't be on a diet. You should be learning how to eat for your body, for your workouts, for your fuel, for what you want to do for your body. You shouldn't be doing keto because you want to lose the most fat. I promise you, I've seen it over and over. It is not going to work out. It's going to be tough, and it's going to be very emotional on you. It's going to be very frustrating, very daunting. I don't want that for you. That's why I'm doing this video when I can barely fucking talk right now. Like, I want you to see results. I want you to see progress. I want you to make changes that are going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And just doing these diets just to try to lose the most fat, it's not going to work. Bottom line, it will not work long term, and you're gonna be regretful you did it and you didn't put some effort into trying to find sustainable lifestyle habits you can keep up with. And it's going to take work. It's going to take effort. It's going to take a lot more work to lose 20 pounds on a sustainable diet than it will keto. But you'll keep those 20 pounds off as opposed to gaining it right back. And I think that is, people understand that, but they don't really understand that, because that's the unlock. I can get you to lose 20 pounds in a month or two. That's not what you want. That is not the goal. And we as a culture and a fitness community need to change that narrative, because Losing 20 pounds in a month is not the goal, man. It's not the goal at all. Losing 20 pounds in 4 months, 6 months, that's the goal. That's the true goal. And that's what you should be striving towards, a long-term, more sustainable lifestyle change. So I hope this video helped you guys. Again, like I'm doing this, I can barely talk. I'm doing this because I want to help. I'm doing this because I want to educate. I'm doing this because I want to help you get sustainable lifestyle habits. If you have a question, if you have a concern, if you've done one of these diets and you really enjoy it or you really hate it or whatever it is, I'd love to hear your feedback. Again, I don't give a damn how you eat or what you eat. I really don't. Like if you want to do keto, perfect. If you want to do fasting, I don't care. The only thing I care about is, are you going to sustain that for the rest of your life? That is literally, hands down, all I care about. And if you can do that, well then I'm good. If you can see progress and you can sustain that progress 30 years from now, I'm good, man. I have no issue with that at all whatsoever. So if you guys have questions, if you want more help, if you want to apply for coaching with me, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help you. I'd love to hear from you. We'll talk soon, guys. Thank you so much.